The following program contains scenes and language of a frank and explicit nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, and welcome to Film Jitsu, the podcast that wields films like deadly weapons. We are your hosts. I am Jay.
And I am Mike.
On this episode, we'll be hearing Mike's thoughts on 2022's Home Team, a Happy Madison production assigned to torment him not by me, but by the team at fellow podcast Filmspotting. After that, we'll go over our bottom 5 teams, and then introduce a new segment of our show called Kick 2, Pick 2. It's all sure to be a lot of fun for everyone but Mike, who will have to relive and make sense of his 95 minutes watching Kevin James play former New Orleans Saints head coach Sean Payton. But before we hear his thoughts, let's roll the trailer.
Coach Payton has been suspended for a full year.
Sean, what are you doing here?
Just came to watch my son play football. Played a great game out there.
You lost 0-40.
Can't help but if all your teammates are horrible. He was good too. A couple of good guys.
You're only here because you got suspended.
Being Sean Payton's son ain't easy. It may be easier on him if you were on that field with us every day.
My butthole!
You do need help.
I believe that we will win.
The Warriors did lose, just to be totally clear.
Mike, you're perhaps one of the most passionate fans of football I know. And in another universe, you'd be here with one of our other friends debating pass interference calls and pointing out the absurdity of the tuck rule. Instead, you're here with a guy who thinks the tuck rule is Ted Levine's Hidden Johnson move in The Silence of the Lambs.
Two things can be true at the same time. Also, let's take it easy on the tuck rule. I just want to say that.
That's what Ted Levine said.
Exactly.
And yet in both universes, it's possible that you'd be on your podcast chatting about the Happy Madison Netflix co-production Home Team, starring Adam Sandler, crony and occasional mall cop Kevin James, a semi-true story about the year suspension served by NFL coach Sean Payton. Watching this movie could have just as easily been a punishment for the failure of a football playoff bracket as it is punishment for, in this reality, your woeful performance in Filmspotting Madness, a bracket-style competition that pits movies against movies on the basis of their perceived quality, classic status, etc. And each year, you compete against Filmspotting podcast hosts Adam Kempenaar and Josh Larson, as well as their producer, Sam Van Halgren, to see who comes up with the bracket that most closely matches the final winners of countless film battles, a bout of madness you're labeled the godfather of for bringing the idea to them.
Yeah, I lost at my own game.
And every year, there's a winner and a loser in your friendly competition for best bracket. And that loser, it's been the tradition that he watched the latest Adam Sandler movie Netflix and Sandler's Happy Madison productions have released.
Yep.
These have included The Ridiculous Six, The Do-Over, and the 131-minute long Sandy Wexler. Be glad you did not lose that year. So these all sound like, to me, cinematic prison sentences, but apparently Sandler sort of upped his cinema game of late with Uncut Gems and like The Hustle. So instead, you were assigned with something else from Happy Madison.
Yeah.
Which looks about as rough as the usual Sandler output, and that's this Home Team. I was more than happy to yield my own choice for this episode so that you could watch this for our podcast. So with that enormous setup out of the way, is the only universe in which Mike Merrigan loves Home Team the universe where he hosts a show devoted to the acting mastery of Rob Schneider?
Yeah, I guess maybe in the multiverse, there's probably a multiverse where I love this movie. It's not the one that we're talking about right now. It's definitely not the one that we live in, because I had to pay my dues after having lost Filmspotting Madness. Lucky me. The good news is somehow, by some amazing twist of fate, I didn't get one that has Adam Sandler in it, like doing shabba-doo for 90 minutes. So
yeah,
I thought, okay, cool. Home Team, I hadn't even heard of this. And what a weird idea for a movie. Who is sitting around going, I wonder what professional football coach Sean Payton did in the year off that he had when he was suspended for Bountygate, which I would explain, but people who care about this podcast don't care about that. So,
actually, I'm super curious. You got to explain it. What was it?
Basically, what happened was that the New Orleans Saints were accused of having like a pay for injury scandal where the coaches were sort of paying their players extra money if they tried to purposefully injure other opponents, which is a shitty thing to do.
This has nothing to do with paper towels.
Nothing to do with Bounty. Oh. Nope, you're right. That's a whole different thing.
All right. So in that case, never mind. I don't care.
This is like your Star Trek episode. This is what it is. Where you're like, what is it about? So,
football's the one with the ball with the black spots and the white spots on it that you kick with your foot.
I think
right?
so. Everywhere else in the world, yes, that's correct. Here, it's where a movie could be made about what Sean Payton did in the year that he wasn't coaching the New Orleans Saints. The answer seems to be that he went to northeast Texas, north Texas. There's a lot of Texas. He went to part of Texas and helped coach his 12-year-old son's football team. Now, setting aside how Bush League it is for a professional NFL coach to roll into a child's football league and be like, do you mind if I help? Like, what a dick move, right? Like,
it's some like graphic designer dad that had the job previously, and then Sean Payton rolls up in his Mercedes, you know.
Yeah. And as the story goes, and it's depicted in this film, he shows up, the team goes undefeated for the rest of the season, presumably because Super Bowl winning head coach Sean Payton was their coach. And then they get to like the big championship game where the other team had an offense that Sean Payton wasn't familiar with. So he picks up the phone and calls coaching legend Bill Parcells for some advice on how to coach this child's football game. Now, look, I get it. It's Texas. There's really no such thing as an unimportant football game in Texas.
Football game, yeah, right.
But that's the premise that we lead with. And I got to tell you, so right off the top, Kevin James playing Sean Payton is
Can I have to ask. Yeah. I have to ask this because this was one of the fundamental questions I had. Every time you watch a real life recreation on the big screen, so something like, let's say, The Perfect Storm, right, with George Clooney, that ship captain did not look like George Clooney. Right. You're talking serious upgrade. Yeah. It's always like a serious upgrade. What the hell happened here? Like, do you think Sean Payton was pissed because Kevin James is a schlub? He's like a schlubby, oafish, and Sean Payton's kind of like a pretty decent looking guy.
Yeah, no, that's like, for sure.
What happened?
He must not have been angry about it because as the story goes, this movie was released the same day that Sean Payton announced his retirement from the NFL, and the gentleman is involved in the film. I'll get to that later. But what the movie
I thought
is
he
about,
was in it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's a moment. There is a moment. We'll talk about that down the line. What a ludicrous idea for a comedy. And so what we get is he goes down to this kid's team, and it is currently being coached by Taylor Lautner, who's the local coach.
He's the graphic designer?
He's the graphic designer guy who doesn't seem to have a kid of his own on the team, which is weird. This film really kind of rubs it in all of our faces how different things have gone for the Twilight crew, because while Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart have become preeminent actors of their generation, Taylor Lautner is not even good in this.
Oh my God. So you've got Pattinson, he's in The Batman, he's in The Lighthouse, he's in Tenet. Mm-hmm. You got Kristen Stewart, who's done Crimes of the Future, Spencer, where she played Princess Diana, and Personal Shopper, which got all those awards, right?
Yep.
And then Lautner, he didn't even reprise his role as Shark Boy in We Could Be Heroes on Netflix. Like, you didn't even...
Yeah.
What is he doing?
it's tough to be the bad actor in a Happy Madison production, but somehow he manages. What's going on here is really interesting because it's almost like Adam Sandler was thinking, I don't want to just set aside cash in a savings account for my family and friends. What I'd like to do is make a movie where I cast almost exclusively my relatives,
my family and friends, like literally his wife.
So his wife plays Kevin James's ex-wife. She has, it's a nothing burger of a role. Adam Sandler's daughter has a small role in it. His nephew has a small role in it. And then after that, it's a lot of the same faces. Kevin James's brother, and then Rob Schneider, because Rob Schneider is in all of these things.
No David Spade, though.
No David Spade, no Chris Rock. None of the big time faces that you see in this thing. If you can believe it, this is somehow like a Happy Madison B team.
Second string, yes.
It's the second string.
It's the kids' football. It's the Pop Warner of their...
Yep. And so we get a really paint-by-numbers story where there's this ragtag football team that isn't very good. Sean Payton comes in, takes over as the coach, and the next thing you know, they start winning. But at what cost? And Taylor Lautner sort of stands there wondering, like, am I really doing the right thing by letting, and I'll say it again, professional NFL head coach of the New Orleans Saints, Sean Payton, take over this team and give the kids new positions and drills. And the whole thing is based around this idea that this is how Payton is going to reconnect with his son, for whom he has been an absent father because he's been off coaching the Saints and this kid's back in Texas. And of course, it's been hard growing up being Sean Payton's kid and playing football when you're Sean Payton's kid. And there is actually a scene where it's supposed to be a heart-to-heart moment. And Sean Payton's like, what do you want to know? Like, what do you want to know about me? He's having this moment where he's trying to connect. And I was like, okay, here comes the heart-to-heart scene. And the kid looks at him and goes, so why did you kick the onsides kick in the Super Bowl?
Oh, my God.
And I was like,
so it turns out he's exactly like his father.
Well,
or whatever,
not even that. He's like, he asked the question that I would want to ask Sean Payton, but Sean Payton isn't my father. That's been absent in my life for all these times. And now I'm living with Adam Sandler's wife. It's crazy.
I thought that this was going to be more like the kind of character rebuilding stuff that Ivan Reitman did with Howard Stern when they did Private Parts.
Yeah.
No. You're saying no to me on this one, right? It's
sort of. It's kind of a redemption story. This is sort of like the Good News Bears is what it is. Is like the kids aren't spewing racial slurs, which that alone seems like a step in the right direction. These kids, they're not the bad kids. They like football. They kind of suck at football. The biggest moment in the whole movie is when they score like their first ever touchdown in a game where they lose 38-6. We just get a lot of scenes of kids who suck at football montages where they fall over their feet a lot and the ball hits them in the face a lot. And really, what do you expect out of this movie? Again, there's a reason that when you lose Filmspotting madness, you watch a Happy Madison production because this is the kind of thing you get. No, it couldn't have been a couple years ago when Adam Sandler released Hubie Halloween, a movie so perfectly idiotically tailored for the kind of thing that I like that I will make apologies for that stupid movie all day long. But
didn't you guest star in it? Weren't you in the background in some of the scenes?
No, but I do have some props from the movie here on my.
There you go. See, so there you go.
Yeah, I have Hubie Halloween memorabilia here at Merrigan's Video Thunderdome. I can tell you that there's not going to be a whole lot of home team memorabilia inhabiting the shelves anytime soon.
Do you think that your love of football had any bearing on your enjoyment of the movie either way? Like, do you think you loved it more or hated it more because you love football so much?
I think I went into this movie with a lot of goodwill because I was watching a movie about kids playing football, and I didn't expect to be as delicate on the film as I ended up being. I just couldn't get angry at the thing. I was like, it's a stupid kids movie where they're playing football. I could be doing a whole lot worse. What was interesting was it was neither really a standard Adam Sandler movie with a lot of the dick and fart jokes or the repetitive gag. We didn't have anybody that was like slow.
Yeah, right. Gotcha.
There weren't any white actors playing other ethnicities. Some of the things that come up other times in Happy Madison.
Some of the stuff that Rob Schneider does in like Big Daddy, right?
Yeah, exactly. In this movie, he plays, of course, he's the new stepdad, and he's all into Eastern medicine, and he's kind of the hippie guru type. This isn't typical Happy Madison dick and fart joke, but it's got just enough of that to kind of also not make it a very enjoyable family movie either.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies, again, that we've run into again on this show.
Yep.
Where you're like, you're really unclear. Who did they make this for?
It wasn't funny enough to appeal to Adam Sandler's usual crowd. It wasn't family friendly enough to really be a torchbearer for something like the Mighty Ducks or the Sandlot or even Little Giants. And so I was left kind of disappointed in a movie that I wanted to hate and couldn't. I wanted to enjoy and also couldn't. I was dumbfounded by the football in the movie because I was pretty sure that the person who was writing how the football happened, like the scores and what had never seen football before. It was that kind of thing. But then...
You mean Peyton he wasn't even involved in consultation with any of the actual plays that he had or anything?
Oddly enough, according to the internet, former Dallas Cowboys tight end Jason Witten, who was an all-pro tight end, was involved in the movie as like a technical advisor. But I was like, well, but Jason Witten has seen football before. Why is the score like this? What has happened? It was weird. It was a weird thing. So
why is the score 22-11?
Yeah.
How did they score 2 offsides?
I have to tell you that I didn't hate the movie. I watched it and was kind of like, okay, like this is cute. I enjoy watching kids playing football. I actually appreciated that it wasn't the Bad News Bears. I think I liked these kids more because they were the nice kids who just wanted to play football than the very, I think, cheap and easy, foul-mouthed little brat team. It wasn't that kind of thing. So there was almost a earnestness to the story that I found myself enjoying. And then this movie managed to blow any goodwill that I had for it when at the very end there was a cameo by the actual Sean Payton as a janitor wearing a ridiculous wig, who shows up and says something to Kevin James about like,
Coach, it's so good to have you back.
It's good to be back.
I missed you so much.
I miss you too.
We really suck without you.
My eyes rolled as far out of my head as possible. It was such a grown moment to end the movie on. No, you know what? If I had to have a tiebreaker, fuck this movie. Like, Sean Payton fucked it at the end. I don't know what to tell you.
I thought maybe one of the axes that you grind the most is with Rob Zombie for always putting Sherry Moon Zombie in his movies.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that Sandler was pulling one of these with his own wife, I thought for sure you'd have something to say. Was she as bad as like a
She's not
Sherry
an actor.
Moon
It's
Zombie?
ridiculous. The weird thing is we could do a bottom 5 at some point of like bottom 5 spouse castings because Kevin Smith's wife in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, she is not an actress. Sandler's wife in this, she is not an actress. Whenever Melissa McCarthy has her husband, who is a funny writer but can't act or definitely hold a scene against her,
he does these like walk-ons.
I don't know. So I guess if you own a production company and you have the money to burn and you make a lot of these silly movies with your friends, which look, I can't blame Adam Sandler for doing the things he does. Those grown-up movies are stupid. They also look really fun to make. It would be like if you and I had a few $1 million to go up to the Lakes region and spend a couple of days recording our dick and fart jokes. I cannot blame the guy for doing it. And there are people who have been watching his movies throughout their adolescence and into their adulthoods. I am of that age. Adam Sandler's from the town I graduated high school in. I have shamelessly enjoyed a lot of Adam Sandler movies. I, of course, like a good, serious drama with stakes and all the stuff that my Filmspotting friends are so accustomed to and used to. And what makes that podcast so great and frankly so much better than ours is that those are real movies about people who do real things and discussed by people who know what they're talking about. I have just seen Happy Gilmore a bunch, right? So, okay. All in all, I guess this wasn't the miserable time that it could have been. I honestly think in large part because Sandler wasn't on the screen. This is just a really easy breezy, quick, not quite paint by the numbers kids sports movie. And the other thing you know about me is I'm really kind of a sucker for family films.
Yeah.
Sort of unashamedly, I like family movies a lot of the time. Infamously, I was in love with Hocus Pocus before it was cool, right? I mean, I have been ringing the Hocus Pocus bell for as long as you've known me. Only now is it kind of the cool thing to do. I have a soft spot for this kind of movie. I love The Sandlot. I will watch all the Mighty Ducks. It's fine. I can get down with this kind of thing. This one just sort of let me down because it wasn't enough of any of those parts. So
it let you down because Sean Payton showed up in a bad wig at the end and said a stupid line.
I was out. So my takeaway from Home Team, what a fucking weird idea for a movie. What a weird fucking idea for a movie.
Well, thanks, Mike, for weathering Home Team, both for our podcast and for our friends at Filmspotting.
Yeah, I want to thank the Filmspotting listeners and everybody who's participated in Filmspotting Madness over the years. I have a lot of fun with it each season, and Adam and Josh and Sam and I, we get back and forth about it. I always have a couple audio appearances on their show, which is a real treat for me. I love it. And so I'm hoping not to lose next time as I did this time in my own game. So really, thanks to them, but good luck to me.
So, Mike, it sounds like in thinking about bottom 5 teams, which was the idea that we had to pair with Home Team, right?
Sure.
Bottom 5 teams, sort of obvious. The team in Home Team actually wouldn't end up here unless it was just because they were boring.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't be anywhere near this list.
Nope.
I imagine in your thinking about this, you probably just thought about bad teamwork, people that didn't get along, something along those lines. What was your approach on this?
Yeah, I decided to challenge myself a little bit, and I skipped over sports teams for my list.
Completely?
With an exception that I will tell you about.
There's
but
always one.
There is always one. I make the rules, I break the rules. This is our goddamn podcast. But we just spent all this time talking about Home Team. And of course, the movies are full of Bad News Bears and Cool Runningses and whatever the fuck is going on in Teen Wolf. And I just decided to go another way. I didn't want to talk about 5 more sports teams. So outside of the notable exception of my number 5 pick, I ignored athletic teams. But I am curious to hear how you approached the list.
I approached it in a very similar way, but I have a couple sports teams on here, but not ones that are at the center of the film, if that makes any sense. I would say that out of my bottom 5 lists that I've ever had, this is the one that kind of just played very fast and loose with the rules.
Good.
So I'll begin with my number 5, and this is the busload of dead high school football players from Beetlejuice, directed by Tim Burton. I adore this movie, and I do think that it's one of Burton's all-time best. But as fun as it is, it has very dark subject matter. I mean, the really likable lead characters played by Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin die within the first, 10 minutes, right? And then you're forced to ride along with them as they try to figure out how to be ghosts and scare the bejesus out of the people that have moved into their house.
Yeah.
But it sticks its foot into a slightly icky space when it tries to mine comedy from a collection of newly dead teenage football players. And it was in the scene when they were in that paper pusher's office there, Juno, their sort of agent to the afterlife. While that character is wonderful, and that scene is really great to kind of imagine the afterlife or purgatory as a sort of bureaucratic nightmare. Makes all the sense in the world. The usage of a team of teenage footballers that seemed perhaps too closely based on that 1970 tragedy of the Marshall University football team that in that plane crash. I know, some people will come at me and they'll be like, oh, but it's, it was a bus crash and the coach lived and blah, blah, blah. All the details are different. They're not different.
Yeah.
I think to their credit, Burton and screenwriters Michael McDowell, Larry Wilson, and Warren Scarron, they bring them back at the very end for that Sonny Conga line thing with, which is honestly a wonderful scene at the end of the movie. And I like that they bring them back. Were I anyone even remotely related to the Marshall folks, or anything like that, I would be pretty cheesed off about the usage of that in the movie. And so for that reason, it made the final position in my bottom 5. And for bottom 5 teams, I think it's a good one to mark.
I said I had an exception to my list, and I do. My number 5 pick is a sports team because for me, even though I set up these rules, some things are too stupid to be disqualified from how stupid they are, and nothing fits that bill quite like vampire baseball. For the love of all that is holy, the vampire baseball team in Twilight has to be the dumbest moment in cinema history. In cinema sports, at least. These sexy vampires love baseball so much that they put on their old-timey pinstripes and play against each other during thunderstorms.
So no one can...
Yeah, because...
So no one can hear the bats
They're so super fucking strong, they have to cover their epic baseball smashes with thunder. And hold on, here, because this is important, right? I am here to say, get the fuck out of here with this stupid all-vampire backyard baseball team. Because first, the bat and ball are not fucking vampires. They're a regular bat and ball. So if you're so good at smashing a baseball that you need to do it during a thunderstorm, then the first goddamn time you hit the ball explodes, the bat would shatter into 1,000 tiny toothpicks, and it's game over. One pitch, super vampire smash, game over, everybody get the fuck out of here. So even that doesn't make sense, right? Secondly, have you ever in your life tried to organize a backyard sporting event with family and friends? It is a goddamn nightmare. I have tried to play kickball with you. Maybe the closest I ever came to choking you out was when you were too drunk to play kickball, because there's always somebody who's too drunk to play the whatever. There's the aunt that's yelling at everybody. There's the person who's way too serious about keeping score. It fucking sucks. Everything about vampire baseball sucks.
I was not the drunk one. That was someone else. I was the one that was trying to keep score. I just want to be really clear.
But you were bad at it because you were drunk.
Perhaps, but I mean, I'm just telling you.
Which explains everything you need to know about family and friends playing backyard sports.
Exactly.
It's fucking miserable. So yeah, these glitter pyres having their backyard baseball team is dumb as hell. And so it sneaks onto my otherwise sports-free list because it just kind of had to.
I would say you didn't cheat at all. That is not a sports team. It's not even. No. They don't even really play baseball accurately. No, it's not
dumb.
Well, I actually do have a sports team at my number 4, and it's the real Washington Sentinels in the movie The Replacements. I've talked about this movie before, from 2000, directed by Howard Deutsch. So I'll keep this really brief, but the original Washington Sentinels, who are a bunch of crybaby millionaires fronted by chief jackass quarterback Eddie Martell, played with all the smarminess ever by actor Brett Cullen. Martell and his crew do almost nothing other than antagonize others and then set an incredibly low bar for cinematic sports teams, as the only thing they seem to be able to do right is push poor Keanu Reeves' truck over a bunch of times. That's about it. It's about the only thing. And they get in a bar fight. That's it. But these guys don't actually play anything. They don't whatever. And if you think about it, they're getting replaced by a disgraced college quarterback, a convict, 2 bodyguards, a sumo wrestler, a preacher, an insane cop, and a gambling-addicted, wiry ex-soccer player. That's who we replace these professional athletes with. So I'm going to say the original Washington Sentinels, number 4 on my list, bottom 5 teams.
I'm wondering at this point, do we just need to convert to being like an all replacements podcast? Welcome to the replacements.
Yes.
Each episode focuses on a 60-second segment of the film from start to finish. I think that's perfect.
Okay. Well, I think we're gonna have to elevate the Replacements in with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We can't talk about. It's now the Replacements we can't talk about. We should definitely retire at this point, the Replacements. It's too top of mind for me all the time. The first thing you said was teams, and I'm like, those fucking Sentinels.
Damn you, Sentinels. Well, I guess while we're talking about what could be considered cinema sacrilege, and sidebar, if Film Jiu-Jitsu doesn't work out, our new podcast is going to be called Cinema Sacrilege. That's it. But it may seem like cinema sacrilege to have anything from Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs appear on a bottom 5, but let's get serious. As far as criminal enterprises go, there aren't many that cock it up as hardcore as the Reservoir Dogs, right? These guys are supposed to be slick, professional, badass criminals that come together for this big heist. They have cool nicknames like Mr. White and Mr. Blue. They spin all these cool Tarantino dialogue scenes where they argue about Madonna's Like a Virgin. Everything about them is supposed to be so awesome. Except once you get past all the nicknaming and the bullshitting, they look around at this team of criminals and what they actually accomplish. It becomes clear that this is a bottom 5 criminal enterprise because
absolutely
right off the jump, first off, there's an undercover cop in the group, right? You kind of fucked it up from Jump Street. Like you already suck at this. You got a cop in your criminal team. Okay, there's that. And then pretty big screw up right there. Then the actual job comes, which results in everybody either being shot, caught, or running from being shot or caught. They suck in crime. The Reservoir Dogs, as much as we love this team of criminals, they actually do very much suck at doing crime. They're good at walking in slow motion, but the Reservoir Dogs absolutely suck as criminals. And so for me, they make it to my list on number 4 in what is actually kind of a proud tradition of shitty criminals. You know, this goes back to the Lady Killers. There's all kinds of teams of crooks that are bad at it. This was the one for me because they are set up as being so awesome and then they suck at it so hard.
They're the inverted Ocean's 11.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They have all the cool and whatever, sort of, but they're completely ineffective at what they're supposed to be doing. And I almost chose them as well for my list, but I kept them off because I thought you might.
Okay.
Sure enough, you did. I am not a big fan of the movie to begin with.
Okay.
So I haven't seen it in a long time. My takeaway from it was exactly what you just said. These are a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
So it's great to know that in the intervening many years since I've seen it, I'm still correct.
It works great as a movie. I mean, that is kind of the point. It works great as a film.
Well, for some it does.
Yeah, it works for me. I think generally people are positive on Reservoir Dogs as a
almost
as a
everybody
film.
is. Sure. No, absolutely.
So
they are.
The thing
I'm not.
Yeah, but not because these guys aren't good at crime. They just happen to not be.
That
good
wasn't
at,
why.
Yeah.
I just think it's Anyway, that's a great choice. I agree with you on so many levels. I have a very similar one at my number 2. Which I'm just going to bump up because I think we can keep the conversation going. So I'm just going to move my number 2 to my number 3 here. And it's the Colonial Marines in Aliens, 1986. James Cameron's amazing sequel to Alien. It might be one of the greatest sci-fi horror action movies of all time. And it's also one of the most rare sequels that is as good as its predecessor. But it hangs a bit too much on the pure ineptitude of this band of allegedly tough as nails Marines who accompany Ripley to the new planet that's been overrun by these nasty xenomorphs. They're cocky and they're brash, crass, seemingly more into posturing than actually carrying out a military operation to search and rescue civilian colonists. So you can see why I think they're very much like the Reservoir Dogs. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
They were more interested in being pumped up jarheads with talking about how great they are and how tough they are and everything. And then the first sign of action, most of them die. It's like right away. They get wiped out like immediately. And now I know that the point of that isn't because they're inept. The point was supposed to be that having as many xenomorphs as there are makes it even scarier than the first movie. These things are going to keep coming and they're merciless, etc. But really, by the end of the movie, there's only one guy left, Hicks. And he's hurt pretty bad. And all of the other Marines are dead. But who lives? The civilian, a little girl, and half an android.
Yeah.
And one Marine that's like barely hanging on.
Yeah.
So, out of the original 10, those people living, I think it's pretty clear that the Marines and Aliens definitely belonged on this list.
I couldn't agree more, so much so that I left it off my list because I was positive you were going to include it. I actually, in the same vein, I also thought of the team of monster assassins that shows up in Predator 2. They show up all teched out and they're going to chase the Predator down with their freeze guns and
Gary Busey's team.
That's right. And Jake Busey's team? There's a Buse.
Gary Busey's
Well, the
team.
Buse is loose in that movie. And similarly, the monster just wipes the fucking floor with them. So I almost edged that into my list, but I was sure that you would do our Colonial Marines. So I can always count on you. You never let me down.
So what's your number now? Okay, so you're at 3?
Has there ever been a team worse at their jobs, both collectively and as individuals, than the Channel 4 News team of Ron Burgundy, Brian Fantana, Chimp Kind, and Brick Tamlin in Anchorman? I would argue there is not.
Well, for all of us here at Channel 4 News, I'm Ron Burgundy. You stay classy, San Diego.
And thanks for stopping by.
But mainly, stay classy.
Thanks for stopping by.
Stay classy, I'm Ron Burgundy.
Thanks for stopping by.
Stay classy. Ron Burgundy.
This movie's hilarious. They are so funny. You have had Anchorman Halloween costumes, Rick Tamlin riding on his furry tractor, the Ron Burgundy who will read whatever's on the teleprompter. It's amazing.
I didn't even think about how bad they are at their jobs because they're such a good team. Like they're a good team together, yeah. But individually they all are absolutely awful at what they do.
Yeah, they're terrible at doing the news.
They really are. Oh my God, I didn't even think of it.
So when I stop and think about teams in cinema that are as bad at their job as possible, my first stop was with the Channel 4 News team. So,
oh, that's great. That's terrific. Awesome stuff. My number 2 is perhaps some blasphemy, honestly. And it's sort of similar to yours in some respects with Anchorman. But these guys are just really bad at what they do. And that would be the classic Universal monsters in The Monster Squad, 1987's comedy child. What is it? Who is it made for? I'm not even sure.
It's a child endangerment movie. Yeah, it's mostly child.
Yeah, like it's like Goonies with Universal monsters in it. It's a fun 80s movie for sure. Best known for the line,
Wolfman's got nards.
I think it's well loved overall by most people. But if you think about it as a team, the Universal monsters, which include Dracula, the Wolfman, the Mummy, Gillman, which is the creature from the Black Lagoon, and before he defects to the other side, Frankenstein's monster, they all make a pretty crappy team. You know, it could be Dracula's leadership because he's sort of an insecure dictator over everything, right? It could just be that this is a kid's movie and you can't have the kids lose, so they're going to get beat by kids,
right,
even though they're these horrible monsters. And I think because it's a kid's movie, it's acceptable, it's fine, you know, okay, yeah. I get it. But I would love to see a version of this story with these creatures being allowed to really do their scary business and be their best selves. In The Monster Squad, you know, writer-director Fred Decker, who's best known for his awesome movie, Night of the Creeps, and Shane Black, who was his co-writer on this one, who is a frequent collaborator of Decker's. Black, of course, is best known for the Lethal Weapon movies. They give us these kiddie versions of the Universal monsters, and they're just silly and sort of goofy, and they don't get along, and nothing really works right. And I would like it better if we got the Universal monsters and they proved to have more balls than nards.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think
sort of
what you get when you have something like that is more like Fright Night, where there's an actual dangerous vampire next door. But you're right, having those iconic Universal monsters as almost like this really great A-team of monsters.
Right. And I know there was some effort first with like the Mummy. They were going to do Cruises, the Mummy, and it was going to be a
potential
the
future episode.
Monsterverse, I think they were going to call it, the Monsterverse. And that, honestly, I would have thought that would have been cool to do, right? Because I think it was going that way. But as a team, bottom 2, yeah, for sure.
Bottom 2.
The Monster Squad.
Well, you mentioned it before, but at my number 2, this team made it here because of how bad they irritate the shit out of me. And that's Danny Ocean's crew, specifically in Ocean's 12. Because that's the one where Julia Roberts plays Tess Ocean, playing Julia Roberts. And that is just the most self-satisfied, idiotic Hollywood circle jerk nonsense I can think of. Talk about my eyes rolling out of my head. Man, my eyes came out of my head at that movie. I am still trying to find them. And like a lot of people, I had a really great time with Steven Soderbergh's Ocean's 11, the first one. It's a really fun movie. But when you hire a screenwriter who's only ever written a Paul Walker time travel movie before, you get Ocean's 12. That's what you get. And so dumb ideas where you turn a really cool team of criminals into a Hollywood meta high five where she bumps into her pal Bruce Willis. No thank you, movie. Yeah. No thank you at all. I know. All-time worst movie teams, and I'm going with this. I get it. It seems crazy when you stop and think about all of the teams that cinema has to give us that I would put this at number 2, but it is just so obnoxious to me that this was actually the thing I thought of first when you gave me the topic. My brain didn't even go to the Bad News Bears. It went right to like, oh, the fucking Ocean's 12 team.
That's interesting because we continue with the way that we're talking about these teams to be on the same track. Because if you think about what I was saying about the Monster Squad, it's the same thing. It's a great team. Like it conceptually, it's a great team. We knew that Danny Ocean's team in Ocean's 11 is fantastic.
Yeah, there's a whole proof of concept in that first movie.
But it gets completely mishandled. Very similar number 2 to my own number 2. I like that. That's very cool.
Yeah.
I'm interested in hearing what your number 1 is because mine is an obvious one and probably my most obvious one.
Mine is not, so we're about to have a good time.
Okay, all right. So mine's the DC superheroes in Justice League. Whether it's 2017 or 2021, whether it's Joss Whedon or Zack Snyder, I don't care which version anyone prefers. Although I find Whedon's brighter, lighter, and funnier version infinitely more tolerable than Snyder's joyless, overlong, and excessive slog. This movie, or whatever movies, however you want to talk about them, straight up destroy the much-loved superheroes that make up the core of the DC universe. I have to make an admission. I am more of a DC guy than Marvel, at least when it comes to the comics and the characters. And I get that Marvels are allegedly more human and more relatable or whatever. But with the exception of Spider-Man and maybe Captain America, few were considered as iconic as Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman before Marvel became a cinematic juggernaut with its cinematic universe. So when DC entrusted fucking cartoonist Zack Snyder, I don't even know what to call him, to attempt to do what Marvel was doing, it was decided that iconography and edginess would be the earmarks of the franchise and that the characters would almost completely be robbed of their joy. Batman, already too dark after Christopher Nolan's treatment of the character, became laughable in this beefy Ben Affleck form. And Henry Cavill, he looks the part, but he just seemed way too serious as Superman, and then commits like the cardinal sin of killing someone in his first movie. And then their first team up was absolutely horrifically bad, the Batman versus Superman movie. And the heroes were reduced to like growling, brawling idiots who for a moment were given this lighthearted scene with Wonder Woman, which she appears. And her appearance sort of like maybe buoyed the whole damn thing, because then she came out with her movie and it was all right.
Yeah.
Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman, you know, I give Patty Jenkins credit. I give Chris Pine a lot of credit.
It's a great
there.
flick,
Yeah. But holy fuck did it go off the rails with the Justice League. What the fuck happened? You only had 2 central heroes because they killed Superman in the last movie. So now you just have Batman and Wonder Woman. And then you get these ass clowns playing like The Flash and Aquaman and Cyborg. None of this works. None of this makes sense to me. It's as if everybody, they look okay enough, but none of them have cast chemistry. None of it comes together. This is supposed to be the greatest heroes, the best heroes. And for a long time in comics, they were. But when they showed up on screen, they had a terrible villain to fight against, which was like a rough draft of Tim Curry's Darkness character from Ridley Scott's Legend. Steppenwolf is an embarrassment. It's dreadful. It's a dreadful film. It's a dreadful presentation of a great team of heroes. And it absolutely belongs on number 1 of every list, every bottom list. Never mind bottom 5 heroes, bottom everything related to film.
I couldn't get all the way through it, and never mind the Snyder Cut. I don't understand what the hubbub was about, but I couldn't agree more with you on any of it.
I think what's important here is that these are great characters. They really are, right? If you think about Christopher Reeve as Superman, and his movies with Richard Donner that he did, and even the second movie, even the third movie, even the fourth movie, you still loved Christopher Reeve as Superman, as bad as those movies might have gotten. If you think about Michael Keaton as Batman, the excitement and the energy of those characters and what they brought to them, and it's so iconic, the symbols and everything there. These would be great to see with energy and chemistry and vitality applied to them instead of this slow motion bullshit. So yeah, I don't want this to be an entire show about how much I can't stand most of what that guy puts out, but you know, that was my number 1, the entire career of Zack Snyder.
Excellent. Well, once upon a time on this show, we did a bottom 5 directors, and Zack Snyder was my number one on that list. So I couldn't be any more there with you on that.
Wow. Oh, okay.
My number one, it's different than the other things that we have talked about. In order to reveal my number one pick, I think it's important to circle back to how I defined what a team is. For me, simply, a team is 3 or more people working together for a common cause. Had to be 3, 2 people as a pair or a duo. So a team, it's 3 or more working together. And so with that fact established, it became clear to me that the only possible number one choice for a bottom 5 team is the Human Centipede. 3 people attached, ass to mouth, and being trained by Dieter Laser to do tricks in the backyard like a Rottweiler. Yeah, I'm good. I already think that a 3-legged race is fairly undignified. So there are teams that I have not wanted to be a part of, teammates that I couldn't stand, tasks that I wanted none of. But being attached snack door to back door with a couple of strangers, no thank you. I want out. For me, my number one, the worst team you could ever possibly be a part of, it's the Yankees and then the Human Centipede. Yeah.
And then the Human Centipede.
I swear, I thought for sure on this list you were just going to give us 5 movies with the Yankees, and I kind of wish you had done it. But
oh, me too. So do I now.
But yes, at number one.
Oh, man.
Not to leave a bad taste in your mouth, but I'm going to end this list with the Human Centipede. And I will see myself out.
Snack door to back door. Oh.
Well, Jason, here we are. We're going to try a new segment on this episode of Film Jitsu. You and I were feeling like maybe our staff picks were getting a little book reporty, and we weren't having as much fun recommending our titles as we thought we might. And part of that, I think, is because there was an awful lot of decorum in our staff picks.
Yeah. We were very, yes.
I would talk about a movie, and then it flies in the face of what our entire dynamic is, which is we have a friendship based on antagonism.
Yes.
Which is the conceit of our entire podcast. And so we wanted to have a new segment where we had the option to kind of argue out some movies. And I think it will serve ultimately as something of a staff pick, because what we're going to do is a segment we're going to call Kick 2, Pick 2, where one of us will present 4 movies and then we argue which 2 movies we're going to keep and which 2 movies we are going to discard in the dumpster fire of cinema history, never to be seen again. And so that is the setup. You get to give our first Kick 2, Pick 2. Without further ado, what are the 4 movies we're going to talk about today?
This is the Tom Hanks edition, part 1, is what I'm calling
first
this.
Sequence.
And, yes, first sequence. Exactly right. Snack hole to back hole. So yes, we're going to pick 2 Tom Hanks movies out of 4 great Tom Hanks movies. And then we're going to kick 2 of them into wherever Nick Stahl went. So we're going to put them there. So they are Big, Toy Story, The Burbs, and Saving Private Ryan.
Ooh.
What do we do?
Oh, I like what you did here. So representative of his whole body of work. So you really threw me with that Saving Private Ryan, because as we're going through, I'm thinking like, man, that 4th movie doesn't stand a chance. And then you drop Saving Private Ryan on me.
And you're like, oof.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I can narrow it down. The Burbs stays. I love The Burbs. That stays. I recently met Courtney Gaines at a drive-in theater. He was there for Children of the Corn, and everybody was there to talk about Children of the Corn. I asked him if Gaines is that some kind of Slavic thing? So
did he get the reference?
He sure did. I think I am not the first person to make that reference to Courtney Gaines. But so easy one for me. I'm keeping The Burbs.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm keeping The Burbs.
So there are 3 movies on this list.
Yeah.
That I really, really love. And one I don't. And the one that I would kick would be The Burbs.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you. No, I don't think The Burbs is as great as you do by any stretch. I really don't.
So what you mean is there's a thing we're talking about where I'm right and you're wrong. That's the where we
always. I mean, that's always the case, right?
No,
isn't it?
Well, when it comes to the The Burbs,
The Burbs is just not a terribly well acted or a terribly funny movie. Rick Dukeman is annoying. I find it grating. A lot of the movie is grating. And as far as Joe Dante's career, I like Joe Dante as like a cinema enthusiast.
Yeah.
But I don't like a lot of his work. So it's kind of interesting. Like I don't think he's a particularly great director. And I don't think that The Burbs is good for him, I think. But I don't think it's a particularly great movie.
For me, it's got that Tom Hanks when he was doing the comedy thing, which I love.
Yeah, but there's others that he did that in.
Of course, it's kind of the dark and spooky thing, which appeals to my sensibilities. So that's why,
absolutely,
for me. But I'm recognizing that by putting The Burbs here, because it's personal, I'm going to be leaving out a really great film, because you are right. The other three movies are kind of objectively the better films. Sure. I just happen, this is the fun of Pick Two, is this is, you get to pick your faves. Ooh.
I'm having a tough one. Big stays for me.
It does.
Big stays.
Okay.
No way I could kick Big.
I watched Big not that long ago with my daughter. She had never seen it. And I watched it. I wasn't nearly as enraptured by the movie as I remembered being. It had been a long time since I see it. I guess there wasn't as much of that zany fish out of water stuff. This time around, I found all the...
You mean Splash?
Yeah. I found all of the sexual tension between a child and an adult woman a little
awkward.
Yeah, a little icky. I don't know.
Yeah,
but anyway.
All right.
But then just have a good time. Shut the fuck up and have a good time. I can have a good time in a movie. So
I don't know. I for some reason even like that, because when I was that age, that's all I ever wanted. So I completely understood
these are the kind of hard choices you have to make in Pick Two, Kick Two. I'm going to take Toy Story out. And the reason is because there are still 3 other Toy Story movies potentially that I could watch that are wonderful. Toy Story is such a great flick. So I'm going to take that one out based on a technicality.
I'm with you.
I think it's hard to imagine never watching Saving Private Ryan ever again. But then am I just turning into...
I would never watch it again.
Am I turning into everybody's dad right here in real time? Is that
yes,
it's such a dad movie, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, you really are. I will never watch it again. The first 10 minutes, 20 minutes ensured that I will never watch it again.
Sure.
I can't. It's incredibly effective.
Yep.
It's impossibly well rendered. It's phenomenal and powerful, and so powerful that I never ever want to watch it again.
Yeah.
So I've seen bits and pieces of the latter part of the movie, which also has some moments in it that are so harrowing. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about that. So I'm going to put Saving Private Ryan away, and I'm going to put The Burbs away. No.
So you're going big in Toy Story?
I'm going big in Toy Story.
All right.
I am going.
All right.
I thought I was kicking Toy Story. I really did, but no.
The one thing that has become very obvious, it's a great thing that we didn't decide that we had to come to a consensus for this, or the podcast would never end. Holy shit.
That we'd punch
Holy
each
shit.
other.
No, that we would have nobody left listening. But
yeah.
I think, so for me, Saving Private Ryan is such a phenomenal example of what can be done with the craft of filmmaking. It's hard for me to imagine never being able to kind of feast on that again, recognizing that you are really putting yourself through something.
Oh, yeah.
Also, as you know, I have spent an awful lot of time in my life with World War II vets. And so I've heard a lot of stories. I used to take care of a former German POW. He had an American that was kept in a German POW camp. So I've had a lot of kind of real world exposure to our World War II vets. So I don't know. This is a real big bite. I think I have to keep Saving Private Ryan as much as it absolutely kills me to let Big go. And I think at the end of the day, Big is probably the right pick over The Burbs for me. I love that. Did we pick completely opposite movies?
Complete opposite.
Wow, good for us. Okay, look at that. Well, this is cool because this is what we didn't plan it this way, but here's what it means. It means that our listeners have a chance now to jump in, and I think we should do this
and solve this fight.
We should vote. In a case where we very organically come out with 2 different picks, let's leave it to the listeners. Hit us up on Twitter and let us know, Team Mike or Team Santo, Who are you going with? We'll let our listeners decide.
Team Santo is Big and Toy Story, and Team Merrigan is The Burbs and Saving Private Ryan. Where do you land?
So what we'll do here, Jay, is we will invite our listeners over to filmjitsu.net. We'll put up a poll. We'll put the link available on Twitter. Follow us there. And let's let the listeners decide. We'll give the results in an upcoming episode. Who is right? Jason's Big and Toy Story, or Mike's The Burbs and Saving Private Ryan. I'm not going to lie. I might end up voting for you in this one. I don't really know. I already love this so much more than staff picks. This is great. Jay, we are at that time in the show where I get to reveal to you what movie you're going to watch for our next episode. And this is a little strange because usually I'm coming hot off the heels of a movie that you gave me. And so this is usually a time where I'm seeking revenge for some horrible atrocity. That's not what's going on here today, because my film last time was given to me because I am a giant loser, and the guys over at the Filmspotting podcast made me watch it. So I kind of have the world in front of me. I can go any direction for really any reason right now. But I was thinking a little bit about Home Team, which is about football, a game of strategy, a game of technique, a game of offense and defense. And it got me thinking, the old line, the best offense is a good defense. And so the movie I'm going to give you today, I'm going to give it to you to make sure that you don't ever give it to me.
Okay.
Because I fucking hate this movie.
Okay.
I would like you to watch, and I think you're going to be mad at me here, 1995's NC-17, Larry Clark directed Kids.
Oh, you suck. What the fuck, dude? Oh.
I hate this movie.
This movie, there's only one other movie that's kind of in this area that would probably make me as angry. And it's a movie called Elephant by Gus Van Sant. Where teenagers are so poorly portrayed, where they're so, I feel so exploited. I feel like they're really exploited, and their tragedy and their things that they're going through in real life are treated as eye candy in some ways. This movie is horrifically offensive to me. This kids movie. I would never have done this to you. This is ugly.
Yes, this movie is ugly. I fucking hate it.
You know I'm gonna have to throw Irreversible at you now.
Oh man,
like it's like right away.
I've never watched it.
I hate New York City. What are you doing?
Well,
Jesus, man.
Blame Coach Sean Payton, because if there is anything that I have learned from sports is that trite metaphors are pretty much all it's about. And so the best offense is a good defense. And so to ensure that I never in my life have to watch Kids again, because I will never watch it on my own accord, the only way I would ever have to watch it is for Film Jitsu because of you. So this is like, I'm taking out like an insurance policy
that your wife will never walk in on you when you have that on screen. Thanks very much for that, Mike. My wife has this unbelievable ability to always walk in whenever the worst possible thing is on the screen.
If you are Jason's wife, please send your feedback to mike@filmjitsu.net. This one's on me.
There's going to be a bottom 5 for this? What's it going to be?
Well, the bottom 5, because I am nothing if not a black hole of creativity, is we're going to do bottom 5 kids. We're just going to do bottom 5 kids.
Of course.
Of all of the things that we could do for this film, I figured we're going to want to get the fuck out of talking about kids as fast as possible. Right. So let's just talk about the bottom 5 kids.
Great.
All right, great.
All right. So as always, from snack door to back door, we've been your hosts. I am Jay.
And I am Mike.
We'll see you next time.
Stalno mislim na te, hoću znat sve karte, vježbat ću sate i sate. Karate, vježbat ću dok zadnji mi kjaj zostane izađe.
Snack door to back door.
Snack door to back door. Tom Hanks edition part 1, you go the first sequence.